When people speak of narcissists, they often imagine loud arrogance, obvious vanity, or theatrical self-importance. Yet psychology reveals something far more intricate and unsettling beneath the surface. Narcissism is not merely an excess of self-love. It is, at its core, a fragile structure built to defend against a deep inner emptiness. And because of this fragility, narcissists do not become obsessed with everyone. They remain fixated on very specific kinds of people, not by chance, but by psychological necessity. Their obsession is not romantic in the human sense. It is symbolic, compulsive, and deeply unconscious. To understand whom narcissists stay obsessed with, one must look beneath behavior and into the architecture of the psyche. In depth psychology, the ego is understood as a small island floating on a vast, unconscious sea. For the narcissistic personality, that island was never allowed to develop stable roots. Early psychological research into narcissistic structures describes a childhood environment where mirroring was inconsistent, where the child was either excessively idealized or emotionally neglected. As a result, the ego learned to survive by constructing a grand image, while the true self remained buried, underdeveloped, and painfully vulnerable. Because of this split, narcissists are not searching for love. They are searching for regulation. They are drawn to people who unconsciously stabilize their inner chaos, and the people who do this most powerfully are not the weak, nor the shallow, nor the easily impressed. Narcissists become obsessed with those who carry psychological depth, emotional consistency, and an unshakable inner center. These individuals possess something the narcissist lacks: a stable sense of self. In analytical psychology, there is the concept of projection, the process by which unconscious qualities are perceived in another. Narcissists project their disowned self onto others. The people they obsess over are often those who embody authenticity, self-containment, empathy, creativity, or quiet strength. These qualities ignite fascination because they reflect what the narcissist's psyche desperately wants to reclaim but cannot consciously access. Obsession, then, becomes an attempt to stay close to one's lost self without having to face the pain of integrating it. Psychological literature repeatedly notes that narcissists are particularly drawn to individuals with strong boundaries. This seems paradoxical at first, because boundaries frustrate them. Yet boundaries also create structure, and structure soothes the narcissistic psyche. A person who knows who they are, who does not dissolve under pressure, who remains emotionally coherent even when challenged, becomes magnetic. The narcissist circles such a person because their presence provides a temporary sense of order. From a spiritual perspective, this dynamic can feel uncanny. It is as if the narcissist senses light and moves toward it instinctively, not to honor it, but to absorb it. Ancient spiritual texts describe this as unconscious hunger, an attempt to feed on what one has not cultivated within. The obsession is not about possession alone, it is about survival. The narcissistic psyche believes, at a deep level, that without external validation, admiration, or emotional supply, it will collapse. The people narcissists remain obsessed with are often those who see through them. This is one of the great ironies of narcissistic fixation. When someone perceives the narcissist clearly, recognizing both their charm and their emptiness, it creates intense psychological tension. On one hand, the narcissist feels exposed. On the other, they feel profoundly seen. And being seen, even painfully, touches the buried core of the self that still longs for recognition. This tension fuels obsession. In classic writings on narcissism, it is noted that narcissists struggle profoundly with object constancy, the ability to hold a stable emotional image of another person when they are not physically present or actively affirming them. Because of this, relationships become cycles of idealization and devaluation, Yet the individuals who resist complete devaluation, who retain their inner dignity and do not collapse into compliance or hatred, linger in the narcissist's psyche. They become unresolved figures, psychological unfinished sentences that the mind keeps returning to. Modern attachment theory aligns with this understanding. Narcissists often exhibit disorganized or avoidant attachment patterns. They crave closeness but fear dependence. The people they obsess over are often securely attached or at least emotionally regulated. These individuals can offer closeness without engulfment and distance without abandonment. This balance is deeply destabilizing for the narcissist because it contradicts their internal belief that intimacy equals loss of control. There is also the matter of resistance. Narcissists are not obsessed with those who surrender completely. Total submission eventually becomes boring because it provides no psychological tension. Obsession thrives on friction. The person who says no, who leaves, who remains unreachable at a core level, becomes unforgettable. In depth psychology, this is described as the activation of the shadow, the disowned parts of the self that become projected onto another and then compulsively pursued. Spiritual traditions speak of obsession as attachment to illusion. In this sense, the narcissist is not obsessed with the person as they truly are, but with what that person represents in the narcissist's inner world. The individual becomes a symbol of wholeness, power, love, or transcendence. Losing them feels like losing access to two those qualities. This is why narcissists often return years later, long after contact has ended. Time does not dissolve symbolic fixation. The writings on individuation, the process of becoming a whole self, suggest that people who have begun this journey radiate a particular psychological gravity. They are not perfect, but they are real. Narcissists are both drawn to and threatened by such individuals. Drawn because authenticity feels like oxygen. Threatened because authenticity exposes falseness. The obsession arises from this double bind: stay close and feel alive, or pull away and preserve the illusion. Another group narcissists stay obsessed with are those who once mirrored them perfectly, but then withdrew. Early psychoanalytic theory emphasizes the importance of mirroring in ego development. When a person initially provides admiration, understanding, or emotional resonance, and then removes it, either through growth, boundaries, or departure, the narcissistic psyche experiences a profound injury. The obsession becomes an attempt to restore the lost mirror, to reclaim the reflected image of grandiosity. Neuroscience adds another layer to this understanding. Intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable cycles of reward and withdrawal, creates powerful neural imprinting. When a person is emotionally present at times and absent at others, the brain releases dopamine in irregular patterns, strengthening fixation. Narcissists are particularly sensitive to this mechanism because the IR self-esteem regulation depends heavily on external cues. The people who disrupt this regulation system remain mentally intrusive. It is important to understand that obsession does not mean respect. Narcissists can remain fixated on people they simultaneously resent. In fact, resentment often intensifies obsession. The psyche becomes preoccupied with what it cannot dominate or assimilate. In analytical terms, this is the ego's struggle against the autonomy of the other. Autonomy threatens narcissistic control, yet it also fascinates because it represents psychological adulthood. Spiritually, this dynamic mirrors ancient myths where figures chase what they cannot possess, only to discover that the chase itself reveals their inner lack. The narcissist's obsession is a modern psychological version of this myth. The other person carries the image of the missing soul fragment. Instead of turning inward to recover it, the narcissist turns outward and pursues the symbol. Clinical observations consistently show that narcissists rarely obsess over those who remain emotionally chaotic or dependent. Such individuals may be used, but they are not fixated upon. Obsession requires strength in the other. It requires something solid enough to push against. This is why many people who are empathic, reflective, and self-aware find themselves unexpectedly targeted by narcissistic fixation. Their stability becomes the hook. There is also the role of moral conscience. Some narcissists, particularly those with higher functioning structures, retain a faint but persistent awareness of what they lack. When they encounter someone who lives with integrity, compassion, or inner alignment, this awareness sharpens. Obsession then becomes a way to stay connected to conscience without having to embody it. The other person carries the burden of ethics for both. From a spiritual psychology standpoint, this can feel draining for the one being obsessed over. Many report feeling watched, remembered, or energetically pulled even in absence. While psychology explains this through fixation and projection, spiritual language might describe it as unresolved, energetic attachment. Either way, the experience is real, and it speaks to the intensity of unconscious bonds. The narcissist's obsession is also fueled by shame. Shame is the hidden core of narcissism. It is rarely visible, but it is always active. People who awaken shame by being honest, self-possessed, or unimpressed become central figures in the narcissist's inner drama. Obsession becomes a way to manage shame externally rather than confronting it internally. In classic depth-oriented texts, it is written that what we cannot forgive in ourselves, we persecute or pursue in others. The narcissist cannot forgive their own dependency, vulnerability, or need. When they encounter someone who embodies healthy dependency, connection without collapse, they are mesmerized. The obsession is an inverted longing for permission to be hum. And other psychological thinkers have noted that narcissists often remain obsessed with those who leave them without drama. When someone exits quietly, without rage or begging, it deprives the narcissist of emotional leverage. The lack of chaos prevents psychological closure. The narcissist cannot categorize the person as weak or hostile. This ambiguity keeps the image alive in the unconscious. And so the pattern repeats. Narcissists stay obsessed with those who do not need them, those who see them, those who resist erasure, those who embody what they cannot integrate. This obsession is not love, but it is not meaningless either. It is a signpost pointing to the narcissist's unfinished psychological work. Whether they ever face it is another matter. For the one being obsessed over, understanding this dynamic can be both sobering and liberating. It reveals that the fixation is not about superiority or specialness, but about symbolic function. You are not desired as an object, you are desired as a mirror, a regulator, a stand-in for something missing. Recognizing this can dissolve the illusion that obsession equals value. Yet the psyche does not release symbols easily. Obsession can linger for years, resurfacing through memories, comparisons, sudden contact, or silent monitoring. This persistence speaks to the depth of the unresolved inner split. The narcissist continues to orbit what they could not assimilate, what they could not destroy, and what they could not become. ND. Within this ongoing psychological orbit, the unconscious keeps asking its question again and again, without yet finding the courage to answer it directly, circling the image, circling the absence, circling the other, as if staying close to the symbol might one day substitute for the inner reckoning that still waits beneath the surface, unintegrated, unresolved, and quietly demanding to be seen, because what remains unseen always exerts gravity. In the narcissistic psyche, unresolved material does not fade with time, it calcifies. What could not be integrated becomes an internal figure, an image charged with emotion, memory, and fantasy. The person they stay obsessed with lives on inside this inner theater, not as a whole human being, but as a symbol that carries unbearable contradictions: strength without submission, closeness without fusion, warmth without surrender. The psyche returns to this symbol repeatedly, attempting to master what it could not metabolize. In depth psychology, this process is described as fixation to a complex, an emotionally charged knot of associations that resists dissolution. Complexes behave autonomously. They intrude into thought, distort perception, and hijack emotion. For narcissists, the complex often forms around individuals who disrupt their grandiose self-image while simultaneously sustaining it. The obsession is thus paradoxical. The same person who threatens the narcissist's defenses also props them up. To let go would mean risking chic free fall. The narcissistic structure relies heavily on splitting, dividing the world into all good and all bad to manage inner chaos. Most people are eventually pushed into one category or the other, but the people narcissists stay obsessed with are those who resist being split. They are seen as both good and bad, both nourishing and frustrating, both desirable and dangerous. This ambiguity is intolerable to a psyche that needs simple categories to survive, and yet it is also irresistible. The mind keeps returning, trying to simplify what cannot be simplified. Psychological writings on envy illuminate another layer. Envy is not the desire to have what another has, but the pain of witnessing another possess something one feels forbidden to possess oneself. Narcissists often experience profound, unacknowledged envy toward individuals who are emotionally free, internally coherent, or spiritually grounded. This envy is not always conscious. It often masquerades as admiration, obsession, or contempt. The object of envy becomes unforgettable because they activate a forbidden longing. From a spiritual lens, envy is a signpost pointing toward unlived life. The narcissist obsesses with those who live closer to their inner truth because that truth has been exiled within themselves. Rather than turning inward to reclaim it, they circle the external embodiment of it. This is why obsession persists even when contact ends. The external figure carries the weight of the narcissist's unlived potential. Clinical observations reveal that narcissists often obsess over people who refuse to explain themselves endlessly. Over-explanation invites control, restraint preserves autonomy. When someone does not justify their boundaries, does not plead for understanding, and does not collapse into guilt, the narcissist encounters a limit they cannot penetrate. Limits, paradoxically, create fascination. They mark the edge of the narcissist's power. In psychoanalytic theory, this is related to the concept of narcissistic injury. Injury occurs when the grandiose self-image is punctured. Most injuries are defended against quickly, through rage, dismissal, or devaluation. But some injuries linger. They linger when the injury is delivered not through cruelty, but through truth. A calm refusal, a quiet departure, a lack of emotional collapse can wound more deeply than confrontation. The narcissist cannot dismiss such moments as weakness. They remain lodged in memory. Attachment theory further explains why obsession clings to certain figures. Narcissists often oscillate between deactivation and hyperactivation of attachment needs. When they encounter someone who can tolerate intimacy without losing independence, it destabilizes their attachment strategies. The psyche becomes preoccupied with solving this riddle. How can closeness exist without control? The inability to answer fuels fixation. There is also the role of moral contrast. Individuals who operate with conscience, empathy, and accountability highlight what the narcissist avoids. Being near such a person can activate dormant guilt or shame. Obsession becomes a way to stay connected to morality without submitting to it. The narcissist hovers at the edge, close enough to feel its presence, far enough to avoid its demands. In spiritual psychology, this hovering is sometimes described as standing at the gate of transformation without entering. Transformation requires humility, surrender, and responsibility. Obsession requires none of these. It is a safer substitute, a way to keep the symbol alive without doing the work. The narcissist can think about the person, watch them from afar, or replay old interactions, all while remaining unchanged. Research on rumination shows that repetitive thought often signals unresolved emotional conflict. For narcissists, rumination about specific individuals serves to regulate affect. Thinking about the person can temporarily soothe anxiety, restore a sense of significance, or reignite fantasy. The obsession becomes a self-soothing ritual, albeit an unhealthy one. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often share another trait. They do not confirm the narcissist's worst fears. Narcissists carry a hidden belief that if someone truly sees them, they will be abandoned or exposed. When someone sees them and does neither abandons with cruelty nor exposes with humiliation, the belief destabilizes. The psyche does not know how to file this experience. Obsession keeps it alive while postponing resolution. In Writings on the Shadow, it is emphasized that what we reject within ourselves appears in exaggerated form outside us. The narcissist's rejected qualities, vulnerability, dependency, authenticity, are often projected onto the people they obsess over. The obsession is not about acquiring the other, but about negotiating with these rejected qualities. The other becomes a living container for the shadow. This is why narcissistic obsession often survives rejection. Being rejected does not end the fixation, it can intensify it. Rejection confirms the narcissist's belief in their own unworthiness, but it also preserves the idealized image of the other. The psyche can then oscillate endlessly between self-contempt and longing, a familiar rhythm that avoids true self-examination. There is a particular intensity reserved for those who escape without bitterness. Bitterness would justify devaluation. Calm departure does not. When someone leaves with clarity and self-respect, the narcissist loses narrative control. They cannot cast themselves as victim or hero easily. The story remains unfinished. The mind returns to it, searching for an ending that restores dominance. From a spiritual angle, unfinished stories are karmic loops, patterns that repeat until awareness intervenes. Whether one believes this metaphorically or literally, psychology supports the idea that unresolved relational patterns recur. The narcissist's obsession ignores a loop that has not been closed internally. It is also important to recognize that narcissists are not obsessed with everyone who is kind to them. Kindness alone does not create fixation. Obsession arises when kindness is paired with independence. Care without dependency confuses the narcissistic script. The psyche expects care to come with submission. When it does not, something cracks. In social psychology, power dynamics are central to attraction. Narcissists seek power to manage insecurity, yet the people they stay obsessed with are often those who cannot be easily dominated. Their power is quiet, internal, and therefore threatening. The narcissist senses that this power does not need validation, that independence is unforgettable. There is also the role of creativity and inner life. Individuals with rich inner worlds, artists, thinkers, spiritually reflective people often become targets of narcissistic obsession. Their inner richness contrasts sharply with the narcissist's inner emptiness. The obsession becomes a way to stay near meaning without cultivating it. In therapeutic settings, it is often observed that narcissists speak of these individuals with unusual intensity even years later. The language may shift from admiration to contempt, from longing to dismissal, but the emotional charge remains. Charge indicates unresolved attachment. Indifference, not hatred, signals resolution. Obsession persists because indifference would require integration. For the Nay, being obsessed over, this dynamic can feel invasive. Being remembered so intensely can distort one's own sense of responsibility. It is crucial to understand that you are not responsible for another's fixation. You did not cause the inner split. You revealed it. This distinction protects against guilt and self-blame. Spiritual teachings often warn against confusing being desired with being honored. Obsession is not honor. It is appropriation. It seeks to extract meaning from another rather than cultivate it within. Recognizing this can free those who feel flattered or burdened by narcissistic attention. At a deeper level, narcissistic obsession reveals a tragedy, the tragedy of a self that never fully formed. The fixation is the psyche's desperate attempt to complete itself externally. The people it latches onto are not random, they are chosen because they carry the imprint of wholeness. The obsession says, without words, you have what I am missing. And yet, no external person can supply what was never integrated internally. This is the repeating failure at the heart of narcissistic obsession. Each return to the symbol ends in disappointment, rage, or renewed longing. The cycle continues because the solution lies where the narcissist least wants to look, inside. Other psychological theorists have noted that narcissists rarely obsess with equals in power who are also exploitative. They may compete, but obsession requires moral contrast. It requires someone who embodies a different way of being. Competition alone lacks the spiritual charge that fuels fixation. As time passes, the obsession may evolve. It may soften into nostalgia, harden into resentment, or re-emerge as sudden contact. These shifts do not indicate healing. They indicate movement within the complex. True healing would require mourning. The mourning of the self that never became, the childhood that never stabilized, the love that was never internalized. Mourning is avoided at all costs in narcissistic structures because it collapses grandiosity. Obsession is safer than grief. Grief would mean accepting limitation. Obsession preserves fantasy. For those who have been the object of such fixation, the most liberating realization is this: you were not chosen because you were weak, and you were not remembered because you were manipulable. You were remembered because you represented something intact, something alive, something that did not bend. The psyche remembers what challenges it to grow. The narcissist's obsession is a backward form of reverence, stripped of humility, distorted by fear. It circles what it cannot enter, watches what it cannot become, and returns to what it cannot integrate. And still, beneath all of this, there remains a quiet truth that depth psychology and spiritual wisdom converge upon. Obsession is a sign of unfinished inner work. It is a symptom, not a destiny. Whether the narcissist ever confronts this truth is uncertain. Many do not. They continue to orbit symbols, mistaking proximity for transformation. Meanwhile, life moves forward. The one who was obsessed over continues to individuate, to deepen, to live. Their wholeness was never borrowed, it was earned. The obsession fades only when the narcissist either integrates what they lack or replaces the symbol with another. Until then, the inner figure remains, persistent, unresolved, hovering at the edge of consciousness, reminding the psyche of a truth it is not yet ready to face, a truth that continues to echo silently, repeating itself in different forms, in different relationships, in different fantasies, as the unfinished dialogue goes on, without closure, without reconciliation, and without a final ending, still turning, still circling, still alive within the depths where awareness has not yet fully arrived. And in that inner depth where awareness has not fully arrived, the psyche continues to stage the same drama in different costumes. Faces change, voices change, circumstances change, but the emotional choreography remains eerily familiar. The narcissistic mind tells itself it is moving on, yet the underlying pattern repeats because the root has not been touched. What was never named cannot be transformed. What was never felt cannot be released. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often become reference points in their internal mythology. Long after the relationship ends, these figures are consulted internally, compared to new partners invoked during NTs of doubt, resurrected during loneliness. This internal dialogue keeps the narcissist from fully inhabiting the present. Time collapses. Past and present bleed together. The psyche becomes a closed loop, feeding on memory rather than reality. In psychological terms, this is a failure of symbolization. Symbols are meant to mediate between inner and outer worlds, allowing meaning to evolve. But when symbolization fails, the symbol becomes literal. The person is no longer a bridge to insight, but a fixation that arrests growth. The narcissist clings to the literal image because letting it evolve would require confronting what it represents. Many depth-oriented clinicians have noted that narcissists often speak of these individuals with a tone that is neither purely affectionate nor purely hostile, but charged with something more archaic. It is the tone of early attachment, of unmet childhood needs resurfacing in adult form. The obsession is not romantic in origin, even when it appears so. It is developmental. It reaches back to a time when the self was fragile and dependent, when mirroring was inconsistent, when love was conditional. The one they remain obsessed with often provided a form of mirroring that was both validating and non-indulgent. They saw the narcissist's potential without colluding with their defenses. This kind of mirroring is rare, and it is dangerous to a psyche built on illusion. It invites growth while exposing falsity. The narcissist both longs for and resents this gaze. In spiritual traditions, this is sometimes described as encountering a mirror that reflects the soul rather than the mask. Such mirrors are unsettling. They do not flatter, they clarify. The narcissist's obsession is an attempt to possess the mirror rather than look into it. If the mirror could be controlled, perhaps the reflection could be altered. But mirrors do not negotiate. They simply reflect. And so the narcissist oscillates between idealizing the mirror and trying to shatter it. When shattering fails, because the other remains intact, grounded, and self-defined, the obsession deepens. What cannot be destroyed must be explained away, reinterpreted, or held at a distance through fantasy. The fantasy life becomes crucial here. Narcissists often maintain elaborate inner narratives about the people they obsess over, imagined conversations, imagined reconciliations, imagined triumphs. These fantasies serve as compensatory structures. They allow the narcissist to feel powerful, desired, or vindicated without engaging in the vulnerability of real relationship. Fantasy becomes a substitute for intimacy. Research on pathological narcissism highlights the role of emptiness, a pervasive sense of inner void that surfaces when external validation wanes. The obsessed-over individual often functions as an antidote to this emptiness. Even thinking about them can momentarily restore a sense of aliveness. The obsession is less about the other person and more about regulating inner deadness. From a spiritual psychology perspective, emptiness can be a gateway to transformation or a pit to be avoided. Transformation requires sitting with emptiness until meaning emerges from within. Narcissistic obsession avoids this by filling the void with another person's image. It is a refusal of the inner journey. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often have something the narcissist unconsciously knows they cannot steal: self-authority. Self-authority is not dominance, it is alignment. It is the capacity to act from inner truth rather than external approval. This quality destabilizes narcissistic control strategies. You cannot manipulate someone who is guided by inner coherence. This is why attempts at re-engagement often fail. When narcissists reach out again, sometimes years later, they are often seeking confirmation that the other has lost this inner authority. If they discover it remains intact, The obsession may retreat again into silence, but it does not dissolve. It simply changes form. In writings on individuation, it is emphasized that the psyche seeks wholeness, not happiness. The narcissist's psyche is no exception. The obsession is the psyche's distorted attempt to move toward wholeness by external means. The tragedy is that the very defense that protects the narcissist from pain also blocks the path forward. There is often a spiritual hunger buried beneath narcissistic defenses. It is rarely articulated, but it shows itself in fascination with people who live with depth, meaning, or purpose. The narcissist senses something sacred there, something numinous. But without humility, the sacred cannot be approached. It can only be circled. The numinous quality of the obsessed over individual is important. Numinous experiences carry a sense of awe and dread. They disrupt ordinary perception. For the narcissist, the other becomes numinous not because they are perfect, but because they evoke something larger than ego, conscience, truth, soul. This is intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. Psychological studies on moral injury suggest that people are deeply affected by encounters that challenge their moral self-concept. Narcissists often lack an integrated moral self, relying instead on external standards. When they encounter someone whose morality is internally anchored, it exposes this lack. Obsession becomes a way to stay near morality without submitting to it. The narcissist may tell themselves stories about why the relationship failed, stories that protect their self-image. But beneath these stories lies a quieter knowledge. Something essential was at stake. Something was demanded that could not be given without inner collapse. The obsession keeps this knowledge alive without forcing a reckoning. For those who have been the object of such fixation, it is common to feel as though you carry unfinished energy. You may sense that the story is not over, even when you have moved on. This sensation does not mean you must return. It means you were part of another's unfinished individuation. You touched a fault line. Spiritual teachings across cultures speak of encounters that awaken rather than comfort. These encounters are not meant to be possessed. They are meant to be integrated internally. When integration fails, attachment replaces insight. The narcissist mistakes the messenger for the message. In therapeutic language, we might say the narcissist confuses object love with self-love. They pursue the object that reflects what they cannot love within themselves. Obsession is a detour around self-acceptance. It is easier to long for another than to face one's own fragmentation. The repetition compulsion plays a role here. Individuals repeat unresolved relational patterns in an unconscious attempt to master them. Narcissists may repeatedly seek out similar people, independent, emotionally grounded, ethically consistent, only to replay the same cycle of fascination, control attempts, rupture, and fixation. Each repetition promises a different outcome that never arrives. This endless repetition has a mythic quality. It resembles the hero who keeps returning to the same trial, failing not because the trial is unfair, but because the lesson is resisted. The narcissist's trial is inward, the dragon is shame, the treasure is humility, the obsession is the road that circles the mountain without climbing it. In social contexts, narcissists may appear successful, admired, or confid. This external success often masks the inner stagnation revealed by obsession. While life progresses outwardly, the inner world remains frozen around a few emotionally charged figures. Progress without depth leads to hollowness. Depth psychologists have long noted that what we do not consciously choose, we unconsciously enact. The narcissist does not choose obsession, it chooses them. It intrudes, disrupts, and demands attention. Yet the demand is misread. Instead of asking, "What does this reveal about me?" the narcissist asks, "How do I regain control?" Control is the wrong question. Meaning is the right one. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often carry the mark of having chosen meaning over approval. This choice is felt more than understood. It radiates, it unsettles, it reminds the narcissist of a crossroads they avoided long ago. Obsession is the echo of that avoided choice. Time does not heal this on its own. Distraction does not heal it. Replacement does not heal it. Only insight can. Insight requires courage, the courage to see oneself without the armor of grandiosity, without the anesthesia of fantasy. Whether such courage emerges is uncertain. Narcissists live their lives circling these internal figures, telling themselves different stories as the years pass. The obsession dims but never disappears. It waits in the background, activated by stress, loss, or aging, moments when defenses weaken. And so the inner dialogue continues. The psyche returns again and again to the same image, the same voice, the same unresolved feeling. It is not asking for reunion. It is asking for integration. It is asking the question that has been postponed for a lifetime: who am I without my defenses? Until that question is faced, the obsession remains a silent companion, a shadowed presence in the inner world, neither friend nor enemy, but a reminder, persistent, uncomfortable, and alive, that something essential was glimpsed once, something real was encountered, and something vital was left undone, still stirring beneath the surface of consciousness, still exerting its pull, still shaping choices, still influencing desires, as the psyche moves forward in appearance yet remains inwardly tethered to a truth it has not yet dared to fully claim. And that unclaimed truth does not remain passive. It presses upward through dreams, slips into moments of irritation, appears in sudden memories triggered by insignificant details. A tone of voice overheard in a crowd, a familiar posture glimpsed from afar, a phrase spoken by a stranger can activate the entire inner constellation. The narcissistic psyche reacts not to the present stimulus, but to the buried image it awakens. This is why the obsession feels involuntary. It is not chosen, it erupts. In analytic psychology, such eruptions are understood as signals from the unconscious demanding recognition. The unconscious does not speak politely. It repeats itself until it is heard. For narcissists, obsession is the unconscious insisting on an encounter with disowned parts of the self. Yet the insistence is misinterpreted as longing for the other rather than longing for wholeness. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often occupy a paradoxical position in their inner world. They are both idealized and resented, elevated and blamed. This ambivalence reveals the core conflict. The narcissist senses that the other represents something necessary, but accepting that necessity would require surrendering superiority. And superiority is the last refuge against inner collapse. In object relations theory, it is noted that early failures in attunement lead to fragile internal objects, representations of others that cannot provide stable emotional nourishment. Later in life, when someone offers a glimpse of secure relatedness without enmeshment, the psyche latches on with disproportionate intensity. The obsession is not about love as it exists in the present, but about repairing a rupture that occurred long ago. From a spiritual perspective, this can be understood as mistaking the vessel for the source. The narcissist believes the other person contains what they lack, rather than recognizing that the encounter activated something dormant within themselves. Instead of cultivating that inner resource, they cling to the external form in which it appeared. This confusion gives obsession its haunting quality. It feels sacred and profane at the same time. Sacred because it is depth, meaning, and emotional intensity. Profane because it is distorted by control, entitlement, and fear. The narcissist senses the sacredness, but cannot approach it with reverence. They approach it with grasping. Many psychological observers have pointed out that narcissists struggle with genuine gratitude. Gratitude requires acknowledging dependence and receiving without domination. The people they stay obsessed with often evoke gratitude simply by existing as they are. This unspoken gratitude threatens the narcissist's illusion of self-sufficiency. Obsession replaces gratitude because it preserves hierarchy. The other is not thanked, but fixated upon. There is also the role of time and aging. As narcissists grow older, the gap between who they imagine themselves to be and who they have become becomes harder to ignore. During such periods, old obsessions can resurface with startling intensity. The person from the past becomes a symbol of a life not lived, a path not taken. Obsession becomes retrospective longing. In existential psychology, this is understood as confrontation with finitude. When time feels abundant, avoidance is easy. When time feels limited, the psyche revisits unresolved meaning. The narcissist may revisit the image of the obsessed-over individual, not because they want reunion, but because that person is associated with vitality, possibility, and authenticity, qualities now felt to be slipping away. The narcissistic defense system reacts to this existential threat by doubling down on fantasy. Fantasy allows timelessness. In fantasy, the story can be replayed endlessly without consequence. Reality, by contrast, demands acceptance. Obsession thus becomes a way to deny time itself. The people narcissists remain obsessed with are often those who did not need to be loud to be real. Their presence was felt without performance. Their strength was quiet. Such qualities pierce through narcissistic noise. They introduce silence. Silence is dangerous to narcissism because it invites reflection. Reflection is the doorway to conscience. Conscience is not imposed from outside. It arises when one recognizes the impact of one's actions on others. The narcissist's obsession often intensifies around those who awakened conscience without accusation. A single moment of being truly seen without condemnation, without flattery, can echo for years. In moral psychology, it is noted that shame and guilt are distinct. Guilt relates to behavior. Shame relates to being. Narcissists avoid guilt by rationalization and avoid shame by grandiosity. The obsessed-over individual often evokes shame, not through attack but through contrast. Their authenticity highlights the narcissist's falseness. Obsession becomes a way to stay near shame without collapsing into it. There is a spiritual law echoed in many traditions: what you resist persists. The narcissist resists inner truth. The obsession persists. It persists not as punishment, but as invitation. An invitation continually declined. For those who have been the focus of this fixation, it is important to recognize that you are not meant to rescue, redeem, or complete another. Your role was catalytic, not sacrificial. You revealed a possibility. What was done with that revelation was never yours to control. The narcissist's obsession can sometimes feel like unfinished business, as though something must still be said or resolved. This feeling arises because the narcissist never internalized the encounter. They externalized it instead. The resolution they seek from you is actually an integration they must achieve alone. In therapeutic encounters, narcissists rarely frame their obsession as obsession. They speak of injustice, betrayal, misunderstanding, or destiny. The language varies, but the emotional undertow is the same: an inability to let go because letting go would mean turning inward. Turning inward is frightening when the inner world feels empty, fragmented, or hostile. Obsession provides structure. It organizes emotion around a single figure. Chaos feels more manageable when it has a name and a face. This is why narcissistic obsession can coexist with apparent disinterest. On the surface, the narcissist may seem detached, indifferent, even dismissive, yet internally the image remains charged. Emotional detachment is often a defense layered over fixation, not evidence of freedom from it. Neuroscientific research on memory and emotion shows that emotionally charged memories are stored differently than neutral ones. They are more easily reactivated. more resistant to decay. The obsessed-over individual is encoded not just as a memory, but as an emotional schema. They shape perception long after direct contact ends. From a spiritual standpoint, this can be likened to a knot in the subtle body, a place where energy loops instead of flowing. Until the knot is loosened through awareness, energy remains trapped. The narcissist's energy circles the same point, unable to move forward. Awareness is the key word here, not insight as information, but awareness as lived recognition. Awareness requires staying present with discomfort without acting it out. Narcissists are trained, often from early life, to act out rather than feel through. Obsession is an action of the mind meant to avoid a feeling in the body. That feeling is often grief. Grief for what was never received. Grief for what was never given. Grief for the self that had to be constructed to survive. Grief dissolves narcissism, which is why it is so fiercely defended against. The people narcissists stay obsessed with often carry grief well. They have faced it, integrated it, allowed it to deepen them rather than harden them. This capacity is sensed intuitively. It draws fascination because it represents emotional freedom. Freedom is both alluring and terrifying. To be free would mean relinquishing the story that one is special because of superiority, and replacing it with the truth that one is human because of limitation. Obsession allows the narcissist to admire freedom without choosing it. In relational dynamics, this creates a one-sided tether. The narcissist remains psychically connected long after the other has released the bond. This asymmetry can feel uncanny to those who sense it. Yet it has nothing to do with destiny or soul contracts in a romantic sense. It has to do with unfinished inner work. Spiritual language is often misused to romanticize this dynamic. Terms like twin flame or fated connection are sometimes invoked to justify fixation. In psychological reality, such language often masks avoidance. True spiritual connection liberates. It does not bind through compulsion. The obsession continues because it is mistaken for meaning. But meaning does not imprison. Meaning clarifies, expands, and eventually releases. What imprisons is confusion. Confusion between love and need. Confusion between admiration and envy. Confusion between recognition and possession. As long as these confusions persist, the narcissist remains tethered to the image. The image becomes a private shrine, a place where longing and resentment coexist. It is visited in moments of weakness, boredom, or threat. And yet even here there is a quiet intelligence at work. The psyche does not obsess arbitrarily. It selects figures that carry evolutionary potential. The tragedy is not the obsession itself, but the refusal to decode it. If decoded, the obsession would reveal its message plainly. What you seek in another must be cultivated within. What you cannot let go of is what you must become conscious of. What you idealize is what you have disowned. Until that decoding occurs, the inner figure remains active. It whispers through memory, stirs through fantasy, intrudes through comparison. It waits patiently, not for reunion, but for recognition. Recognition is the moment when the narcissist finally understands that the obsession was never about the other person's return, approval, or submission. It was about an inner summons that went unanswered. Whether that recognition ever arrives is uncertain. Many lives end with obsessions intact, quietly carried to the grave. Others crack open under the weight of repetition, forcing awareness through suffering. What remains constant is this: the people narcissists stay obsessed with are not ordinary attachments. They are mirrors, thresholds, symbols of a self that could have been more integrated, more alive, more real. They remain unforgettable not because they were perfect, but because they were true. And truth, once encountered, cannot be unseen. It can only be avoided, resisted, or slowly, painfully integrated. As the psyche continues its circling movement, drawn again and again to the same inner image, until one day, perhaps, the movement turns inward instead of outward, and the long-delayed work finally begins, not with resolution or closure, but with the first honest moment of seeing, feeling, and staying present with what has always been there, waiting beneath the obsession, unresolved, persistent, and quietly calling for consciousness. And so the obsession finally reveals its true meaning. It was never about possession, revenge, reunion, or unfinished conversation. It was a psychological and spiritual echo, an inner summons that pointed toward what remained unintegrated, unlived, and unclaimed. The people narcissists stay obsessed with are not accidents in their story. They are symbols that expose the fault line between the false self and the authentic one. They carried qualities the narcissistic psyche both needed and feared: inner authority, emotional truth, moral coherence, and spiritual depth. The fixation persisted because these qualities could not be erased, only avoided. What haunted the narcissist was not the loss of the person, but the loss of the chance to become whole in their presence. In the end, obsession stands as a quiet verdict delivered by the psyche itself. It says that no amount of admiration, control, fantasy, or replacement can substitute for inner work. It reminds us that what is not faced within will return through others again and again, wearing familiar faces. True release comes not when the other disappears from memory, but when the meaning of their presence is finally understood. When that understanding arrives, the spell breaks, not through force, but through awareness. And where obsession once circled endlessly, something new becomes possible: responsibility, humility, and the slow emergence of a self no longer dependent on mirrors, but grounded in truth.